My name is Olivia Smith, 22, a computer science student in Boston. I was so deep in debt I could only afford a battered old laptop from a pawn shop for $30, never imagining that this piece of junk would ruin my life. Inside its hard drive wasn't just leftover data, it was the secret blueprint of a criminal empire. Laundered money trails, coded transactions, and names that were never meant to surface. They murdered the shop owner to silence him, and when they realized I had accessed the files, they kidnapped Alex, my best friend, the only person I had left my family in all but blood. But the cruelest cut came from the last place I expected, Professor Nolan. The mentor I trusted, the man I once thought of as my guiding light, was the monster pulling the strings all along. He thought I was just a lamb trembling before the wolf. He was wrong. He's the one who taught me how to break codes, how to peel back the layers of deception. And now, I'll use every line of code he gave me to tear his empire apart. He handed me the key, and I'll turn it into the blade that ends him. I wake up to the sound of traffic honking outside my window and the faint smell of burnt coffee drifting from the apartment below. My room is tiny, cluttered with old textbooks and a laptop that has seen better days. At 22, I am already tired of struggling, of feeling like every step forward is paid for with 2 steps back. College debt is a weight that follows me everywhere. I roll over and glance at my phone to see a reminder of my bank account balance staring back at me like a cruel joke. Alex calls every morning, usually around 7, and I can hear him before he says anything. "Hey Olivia, you up yet? I can hear you breathing from here," I laugh even though it is half forced, half real. "Yeah, I'm just barely alive," he chuckles, and says the kind of thing that only a best friend can get away with. Don't make it sound so dramatic. Olivia Coffee exists, and so do jobs. I swing my legs over the bed and plant my feet on the cold floor. The tiles are cracked and grimy, but at least they are real. I look around at the peeling paint and the crooked posters of old sci-fi movies that remind me why I am still here in this rat race of a city. Class starts in an hour, but I have assignments to finish and code to debug. I am studying computer science because I love it, but also because I am desperate for a way out. Some nights I stay up until 3 or 4 tinkering with code just to feel like I am moving forward. Other nights I lie awake thinking about how my tuition is only increasing and my account only decreasing. My neighbor Mrs. Jenkins is knocking on my door. She is 75 and has lived here longer than anyone can remember. "Olivia, honey, you forgot to take out your trash again." I mumble sorry and promise I will. She smiles like she is forgiving a crime. I wonder if she knows how small my world has become. Alex texts me while I am eating a quick breakfast of instant oatmeal. "Don't forget the group project meeting today. I know you hate it, but we need you," I sigh. Group projects are supposed to be collaborative and fun, but for me they are just another chance to prove I can survive while everyone else is coasting. Walking to campus, I pass people who look like they have their lives together, and it stings every time. The city is alive and harsh and beautiful all at once. Every building seems to mock me a little, but I keep walking because I have to. I am Olivia Smith, and I am not done yet even if the world thinks I am a small student with a big debt. At the library, I sit down next to Marcus, my coding partner. He is good at algorithms and terrible at remembering deadlines, but somehow we make a decent team. "Hey Marcus, did you figure out the bug from yesterday?" He shrugs and pushes his glasses up his nose. "Not really, but I think if we just break it into smaller functions, we might be able to isolate it," I nod. That is why I like working with him. He does not panic even when the code looks like it is laughing at us. The hours pass in a blur of typing, debugging, and too much coffee. I love this part of my life when everything makes sense in a logical binary way. The world outside the code can be unfair, but inside it there are rules and solutions. After class, I walk back through the city streets, thinking about the tiny apartment waiting for me and the bills that will be there too. I am tired but not ready to give up. I have to believe that something bigger is out there. Something that will make all this struggle worth it. I do not know what it is yet, but I can feel it coming like a pulse under my skin. Back in my room, I sit on the edge of my bed with my laptop open. I scroll through job listings, scholarship emails, and campus notices. Each click is a reminder that I am surviving but barely. I text Alex. "Hey, you want to come over later? I found some old movies we can watch." Sure, he replies. I need a break anyway. Even a small moment like that feels like a victory. And as I look out at the Boston skyline turning orange in the setting sun, I remind myself again that I am Olivia Smith. I will find my way. I may be small now, but I am not invisible. I am not done yet, and I will not be. It was one of those gray Boston mornings where the clouds feel like they are pressing down on the city. I was trudging to my favorite thrift electronics shop because I needed a cheap replacement mouse for my laptop and maybe a little distraction from all the debt and deadlines. The bell above the door jingled as I stepped inside, and the smell of old plastic and dust hit me like a wave. The shop was a mess of towers of old monitors, tangled cables, and shelves lined with outdated laptops. I always loved places like this, full of forgotten things waiting for someone to give them life again. "Hey, looking for anything in particular?" the clerk asked without looking up from his phone. "Just a mouse, and maybe something to tinker with," I said. Wandering past a stack of laptops that looked like they had been abandoned for decades, he shrugged and went back to scrolling. I kept walking until something caught my eye. A dusty laptop with a faded sticker on the corner was shoved in a corner under a pile of old manuals. Its screen had a faint scratch, but otherwise it looked intact. I picked it up, feeling the weight and imagining what stories it might hold. "How much for this?" I asked. $30, he said. Without looking up, I smiled at the ridiculous bargain. $30 for a machine that could have hidden secrets or maybe just old spreadsheets. I handed him a few bills and carried it home like I was holding a treasure chest. Back in my tiny apartment, I set the laptop on my desk and plugged it in. It whirred to life slowly, coughing up files and folders that were a chaotic mess. Most of it was junk, old images and documents, but then I found it. A file with a random name, just a string of letters and numbers that made no sense. I double-clicked, and a window popped up full of what looked like nonsense, random characters and symbols scrolling across the screen. Curiosity tingled in my fingers. I am a computer science student after all. I can read code, and cryptography is my favorite playground. I leaned back and muttered to myself, "What are you hiding?" Hours passed as I tried to make sense of it. The file was unlike anything I had ever seen. The encryption was complex, layered with multiple keys and obfuscations. My fingers flew over the keyboard, writing scripts, trying algorithms, anything that might make the data readable. I barely noticed the time passing until my stomach growled and the light outside started to fade. And then I saw it. A snippet of plain text hidden within the chaos. A bank account number, a series of transactions and names that made my stomach drop. This was not just some random old file someone forgot. This was evidence of something big, something dangerous. I felt my pulse spike. Alex called right as I was leaning closer to the screen. "Hey, Olivia, you still alive?" "Barely." I said. "You will not believe what I found." He laughed. I am bracing myself for a nerd freak out. "No, seriously, Alex. This is not normal. This is like someone trying to hide a massive fraud or something." His tone shifted instantly. And I could hear it even over the phone. "Olivia, be careful, just be careful." I wanted to brush it off, but I couldn't. Something told me that this was bigger than any assignment or project I had ever worked on. Something told me I was about to step into a world I was not ready for but could not resist. I stayed up all night, following the threads of the file, slowly unraveling the code, and piecing together a picture of financial transactions that made my head spin. I jotted notes, saved backups, and whispered to myself, "This cannot be legal." When the first rays of sunlight crept through my window, I had only scratched the surface, but I knew one thing for certain. Whoever created this had secrets that people would kill to protect. And now I had those secrets in my hands. I leaned back in my chair, exhausted and scared, and I texted Alex. "I think we just stumbled into something way bigger than us." He replied almost immediately, "Then we better be smart and stick together." I nodded even though he could not see me. I knew the game had changed. My life in Boston, my safe routines, my struggles with debt seemed trivial now. What I had uncovered was a rabbit hole, and I had just jumped in. And I had no idea how far it would go. I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing violently on the desk. Groggy, I squinted at the screen and saw Alex's name flashing. My heart skipped. "Olivia, you need to turn on the news now," he typed. I clicked over to the live broadcast and froze. The screen showed a chaotic scene outside a brownstone in a quiet Boston street. Police tape fluttered in the wind, and officers were ushering neighbors away. A man's body lay covered on the sidewalk. My stomach dropped. "Henry, the laptop guy." "He's dead," I whispered aloud. My fingers trembling. Alex called immediately, and I answered on the first ring. "Olivia, I told you to be careful." "What do you mean? What do you mean dead?" I took a shaky breath. "I don't know. All I know is the news is showing Henry, the guy I bought the laptop from. He's dead. He was killed." There was silence on the line. And then Alex's voice lowered. "Olivia, This is serious, really serious. You have to hide the file somewhere safe now. I did not even argue. My hands shook as I copied the encrypted file onto a flash drive and stashed it in the bottom drawer of my dresser. Every scenario I imagined made my stomach knot tighter. Someone knew what Henry had, and they were willing to kill for it. The thought of Alex came next, and panic surged. What if he somehow got involved just by talking to me? I had to keep him safe. I grabbed my backpack and sprinted down to his apartment. I found him pacing his tiny kitchen, phone pressed to his ear, talking to his parents. Alex, wait, I said. As soon as he saw me, he ran over and hugged me tight. Olivia, you are freaking me out. I am fine. But why are you here? I explained everything from the discovery of the file to Henry's murder. His eyes widened as he listened, and then I saw the fear that mirrored my own. You cannot tell anyone, I said, my voice low, serious. He nodded. I won't, I promise. We spent the next hour making plans. We could not go to the police yet, not without proof and not without knowing who we were really dealing with, but we also could not stay still. Danger was coming closer and we had to be smart. Then a knock on Alex's door made both of us jump. I peered through the peephole. No one was there. A breeze swept in from the hall carrying the faint scent of cologne and fear. I swallowed hard. Someone was watching. Alex looked at me pale and whispered, Olivia, I think they know about us. My chest tightened. This was no longer about curiosity or homework. This was about survival and protecting someone I cared about. I realized for the first time that the world I had entered with that file was ruthless and it did not forgive mistakes. We decided to lie low for the day. Alex went to a friend's apartment, claiming he had an early shift at the hospital, and I stayed in mine, pretending to be absorbed in code and textbooks. But my mind was racing. Every sound outside made me jump. Every shadow in my apartment made me flinch. I remembered Henry and his eyes wide with fear the last time we met, asking me if I was sure I knew what I was doing. Now I understood. I had no idea how far this went and who was willing to hurt me to keep it hidden. I spent the night scanning the file again, looking for anything else that could help us understand what we had stumbled into. Somewhere deep inside the code, I sensed patterns and connections. I was starting to see a network, a web of names, accounts, and dates that could unravel everything. I whispered to myself as I worked, I will not let them hurt Alex or me. I will figure this out, no matter what. By the time the sun started rising over the rooftops of Boston, I had made a tiny breakthrough. A sequence in the file led me to believe there were higher stakes than we imagined. Powerful people were involved, and they were dangerous. I leaned back in my chair, exhausted and scared, but strangely exhilarated. Fear had never felt so alive, so sharp, so motivating. I had crossed a line. There was no going back. And for the first time, I realized that my life was not just about surviving my debts or finishing my degree. It was about surviving the consequences of something far bigger. Something that had already cost someone their life. The morning after Henry's murder, Boston felt heavier somehow. Even the usual clatter of traffic and subway rumble seemed distant, muted, as if the city itself was holding its breath. I sat cross-legged on my apartment floor with the laptop open, coffee cooling beside me, trying to map out everything I had discovered in the encrypted file. I had always loved puzzles, the kind that made my brain stretch and twist. But this was different. Every line of code, every snippet of data led to something bigger than anything I had worked on in school. And the deeper I went, the more I realized it was all connected to people with influence, money, and power. Marcus texted me during lunch, hey Olivia, you still buried in that file? I typed back fast, I can't stop now, something big is in here. His response came almost instantly, be careful, remember what happened to Henry. I bit my lip. Marcus was right. But I also could not stop. I had to understand what I had found before it found me. I started creating a visual map of names, accounts, and financial flows. It was messy at first, strings of code and numbers turning into lines connecting to other lines. Then a pattern began to emerge. There were shell companies, people moving money between banks like it was nothing. And then I saw familiar names. Public figures, executives, people I had read about in the news. I whispered to myself, oh my God, this is huge. Just then my phone vibrated. A number I did not recognize. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the green button. But curiosity won. Hello, a calm voice spoke, Olivia Smith. I assume yes, who is this? I asked. Tension tightening my chest, call me Shadow, they said. I know what you are looking at, and I can help. My heart raced. A stranger claiming to know the same file I was trying to decode and willing to help. It was both terrifying and exciting. Why would you help me? I asked. Because what you found can change everything, I want to make sure it does not fall into the wrong hands. I frowned, suspicion crawling up my spine. And why should I trust you? Shadow paused for a long moment, then said, because I am the only one who can. I spent the next hour on the phone with Shadow, who guided me through a few tricky layers of encryption. His instructions were precise, almost surgical, and yet something about him felt human. I started to feel that mix of trust and fear that comes with being on the edge of something dangerous. Later that evening, Alex came by. He had spent the day at a friend's apartment, but I could tell he had been thinking about the file the entire time. You are way too deep in this, I said, as he flopped down on my couch. I know, he said, sighing, but I want to help you. I shook my head. No, you cannot risk yourself. You do not even know what we are up against. He looked at me with those steady eyes that always made me feel like everything would be okay, even when I knew it would not. Olivia, if you are in this, then I am too. I felt the weight of responsibility settle heavier than my student loans. Protecting him, protecting myself, figuring out what we had uncovered. It was a lot, but it was also exhilarating in a way nothing else had ever been. Over the next few days, I began noticing patterns that went beyond financial transactions. Emails, timestamps, even pieces of metadata pointed to a network of people orchestrating moves in ways only someone with knowledge and access could coordinate. And then came a chilling realization. One of the people who had created parts of this encryption was someone I admired, someone I had trusted. Professor Nolan. My favorite professor, the man who had inspired me to study computer science, to push myself, to believe in my potential. I froze. Could it really be him? My mind flashed back to class lectures, to casual conversations in his office, to the advice he had given me. How could he be involved in something so sinister? Alex noticed my silence and asked, what is it? I shook my head, trying to steady my voice. I think Professor Nolan is part of this. He whistled low. That cannot be real. I nodded slowly. I wanted to believe it was a mistake, a misinterpretation, but deep down I knew it was true. The data did not lie. That night, I stayed awake, mapping connections between Professor Nolan and the shell companies I had uncovered. Names of executives, politicians, accounts, all linked in ways that made my brain ache. Somewhere in the middle of the night, I whispered to the empty apartment, I will figure this out. I have to. I did not sleep again. Not really. Every sound from the hallway, every flicker of light from my laptop made me jump. But at the same time, I had never felt more alive. Fear had a clarity to it that nothing else could provide, and I had no choice but to follow the threads of the mystery, even though I did not know where it would lead. By dawn, I had traced several leads that pointed to Boston and beyond, a trail that would not only test my skills, but put both Alex and me in direct danger. And I knew one thing clearly. Whatever this was, there was no going back. It was late afternoon when I got the call. My phone lit up with an unknown number and my stomach dropped before I even answered. Hello, a voice, rough and clipped, spoke so fast I barely understood. Tell her Alex is with us if she wants him to see sunrise. My heart froze. My hands shook as I clutched the phone. Who is this? What do you want? No time for questions. Just tell her stay quiet or he dies. The line went dead. Silence swallowed me. I sank onto the floor, every thought colliding in a panic. Alex was taken because of me, because of the file, because of the secrets I had uncovered. I swallowed back a sob and tried to focus. Panic would not save him. Thinking clearly might. I grabbed my laptop and began reviewing everything again, looking for patterns, for clues, anything that could lead me to him. Marcus called just a few minutes later. Olivia, you sound off. What happened? Alex is gone, I said, voice barely a whisper, but trembling with fury. He whistled low. Gone like we're kidnapped by people connected to the file. Everything I have been tracing. It got serious fast. Marcus exhaled sharply. I know someone you can call. By mid-evening, I was talking to Shadow again. I filled him in as fast as I could. Shadow did not react with fear or excitement, just calm precision. Do you know where they are now? Not exactly, but there are patterns in the timing, the way the messages came through. Good, he said then. We have a starting point. We worked through the night. Shadow guided me through decrypting the small bits of data hidden in the file that I had not noticed before. Metadata, timestamps, and minor transaction trails led us to a warehouse in the outskirts of Boston. I could feel my pulse in my ears as I typed. Every new piece of information was like a heartbeat, telling me he was still alive. Alex texted me from an anonymous burner phone midway through our analysis. Olivia, please get me out. I froze for a second, then typed back fast. Hold on, I will find you. I drove across the city, with my hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than I had ever held anything. My mind kept running through what Shadow had said about staying calm about assessing risks. But it was impossible to stay calm when your best friend was in danger. When I arrived at the warehouse, the streets were empty and the place was surrounded by silence. I got out and moved cautiously, scanning the area, looking for signs, listening for anything. Then I saw him, bound and sitting on a chair, bruised but awake. Alex looked up and his eyes met mine. Relief and fear swirled in them. "Olivia, you came, I knew you would." I ran to him, ignoring everything else, and untied the ropes as fast as I could. He flinched as I pulled the knots free, but then relaxed, leaning into me. We did not have time for words. Footsteps echoed from the other side of the warehouse. Shadow's voice crackled through my earpiece. "Get to the exit, you have a small window." We moved quickly, crouching low and keeping to the shadows. Every sound was amplified in my head. I kept telling myself that this was a test of my wits and my courage. And then we were out. The cold Boston air hit us, and I breathed it in like it was salvation itself. Alex grabbed my arm tight. "You did it. I can't believe you did it." I forced a laugh. Even though my hands were shaking, we did it together. We drove away from the warehouse without looking back. My mind raced with questions. Who were the people who took him? How did they know about the file? How much more dangerous was this going to get? That night back in my apartment, I could not sleep. Alex stayed with me, and for the first time, I saw how frightened he really was. I kept telling him everything would be okay, but even I was not sure. Shadow contacted me again and gave me instructions on what to do next, how to hide the data safely, and how to track the next threads. The sense of danger was constant, but there was also a strange clarity. I had crossed a threshold into something bigger than my life before, bigger than Boston, bigger than anything I had imagined. And I realized with Alex safe for now, but still at risk, I had no choice. I had to see this through. I had no idea how far it would go or who would be behind it all, but I would not back down. I whispered to myself as I sat at the laptop tracing the threads again, I will not lose him. Not to this, not to anyone, and I knew then that nothing in my life would ever be the same. The game had changed, and I was in it for good. The next morning, Boston was quiet, almost eerily so. Alex was still at my apartment, sitting on the edge of my bed with a blanket draped over his shoulders, nursing bruises that I had no words for. I made coffee and sat across from him, trying to keep my hands from trembling as I spoke. "We need to figure out who is behind this," I said. Taking a deep breath, he nodded, but his voice was rough. "You really think this is bigger than Henry and the warehouse?" I swallowed. Thinking about the file, the connections, the strange guidance from Shadow. "Yes, Alex, it is bigger than anything we have ever imagined." He leaned back, eyes scanning my cluttered room, and asked cautiously, "So you trust this Shadow person?" I paused. The voice on the phone had been calm, precise, almost unnervingly composed. "I don't know if I trust him completely, but I know he is the only lead we have." Alex frowned, but did not argue. Instead, he sighed and leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "We need a plan." I nodded. Pulling my laptop closer, I spent the rest of the morning cross-referencing data from the file. Every snippet of information I decrypted led to new connections. There were people moving money like shadows across banks and companies I had never heard of, but some names were familiar. Public officials, corporate executives, even Professor Nolan. I shook my head, staring at the screen, unable to believe it. Alex reached over and placed a hand on my shoulder. "Sarah, if he really is involved, we have to be smart." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of betrayal settling over me like a stone. Professor Nolan, my mentor, the man who had encouraged me, had somehow created the very code that was now putting both our lives in danger. Just then my phone buzzed. It was Leela, my older sister and a journalist. "Hey Olivia, I saw the news last night about Henry." She typed softly, "Are you okay?" I hesitated, then typed back, barely controlling my panic, "I am okay." But Alex was involved. "He is safe now." There was a pause before her reply, "You need to be careful. This sounds bigger than you realize." Her concern was comforting. Leela had always been the voice of reason in my life, the one who reminded me to consider the consequences and think beyond my own curiosity. Over the next few days, she became an unofficial partner in my investigation. She helped me research names, check news articles, and even contact sources that I would never have dared approach alone. Marcus continued to assist with the technical side, helping me write scripts that could sift through encrypted files faster than I could manually. And Shadow guided me through each step, providing crucial insights without ever revealing too much about himself. One evening, as I traced financial flows through the file, I noticed something chilling. A series of encrypted emails pointed directly to Professor Nolan. The writing style, the coding patterns, even the subtle digital fingerprints all matched. I whispered to myself in disbelief, "How could he do this, Alex?" Sensing my tension, asked quietly, "What is it?" I turned the screen toward him. "Look at this, all of it. It leads back to him." He leaned in. Eyes wide, "I can't believe it." I shook my head. "My mentor, my favorite professor, the man I trusted completely, he is part of this Leela, who had been quietly reviewing a separate set of data." Interjected, "I can verify some of these accounts to the way the money flows. It is definitely controlled by someone with inside access and expertise." My hands shook as I typed. This was no longer just a game or a puzzle. It was personal. The betrayal cut deeper than any threat from a stranger. Shadow's voice came through my earpiece later that night. "We need to prepare for escalation. They know someone has access to the file, and they will not hesitate." I looked at Alex and Leela, both tense but determined. We were in this together, whether we liked it or not. I realized then that understanding the code was not enough. To survive and protect Alex, we had to understand the people behind it. Their motives, their weaknesses, their patterns. And I knew that the closer I got to the truth about Professor Nolan, the more dangerous it would become. I whispered to myself, as I stared at the city skyline from my window. Boston looked calm. But it was a fragile illusion. I have crossed a line. There is no turning back now. And I promised silently, I will expose him, I will protect Alex, and I will see this through no matter what it costs. The following days blurred into a rhythm of research, coding, and quiet fear. I spent hours hunched over my laptop, tracing transactions, decrypting layers of the file, and mapping connections. Each name I uncovered felt like a new piece of a puzzle that was both fascinating and horrifying. I could feel the weight of the secrets pressing down on me, but at the same time, I could not stop. Marcus became my constant partner in crime. He would sit beside me in my tiny apartment, headphones on, running scripts, pulling data, keeping his focus razor sharp. Leela checked in constantly, bringing news clips, court filings, and contacts that she thought might help. And Shadow guided me through the technical thickets, providing insights that were sometimes unsettling in their precision. One night, as I stared at the screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard, I realized how interconnected everything was. Shell companies, offshore accounts, coded messages hidden in financial software. It was not just a local scam. This was a network reaching all the way into institutions I had always believed were untouchable. Alex came in, leaning against the doorframe. "I know you're buried in this again." I gave him a tired smile. "I have to see this through." He shook his head, but smiled faintly. "You always do." I felt a small pang of guilt because he had already been in danger. And now he was here, watching me obsess over lines of code instead of sleeping or eating properly. But the truth was I could not step back. Not now, not ever. Shadow's voice came through my earpiece, calm as ever. "Sarah, we need to identify the weak links. Those who are not fully aware of the network. They will be our starting points." I nodded even though he could not see me. "I understand." We spent hours analyzing patterns of communication, tracing the timing of transfers, looking for errors, anything that could give us an entry point. Some names were red herrings, others were ominously familiar. And then there was one that made my stomach knot. A company that had been sponsoring a scholarship I had been hoping to get. I froze. Alex noticed immediately. "What is it?" I showed him the data. "See this company, the same one funding the scholarship program I applied for. They are part of this." He whistled low. "That is messed up." I nodded. "The stakes are everywhere, Alex, not just money, not just people. But futures, dreams, the kind of things that hurt in ways you cannot even measure." The next day, we went through more layers. Leela found a few journalists who had covered suspicious financial activity, but had never connected the dots. We contacted them cautiously, hinting at information without revealing too much, trying to see who could be trusted. Marcus leaned back in his chair after running a particularly complex decryption script. "This is insane. I did not think code could hide this much." I rubbed my eyes and muttered, "Yeah. But it did, and now we have to untangle it before anyone notices we're poking around." Shadow's guidance became even more precise. He was pushing me to act like a strategist, not just a hacker. "Look for leverage," he said. "Think about who has access to what and who can be persuaded or distracted." We started identifying patterns in behavior. Certain employees made transfers at odd times, communication loops that looked like nothing but actually hid instructions. I began to notice subtle signatures in the encryption itself, almost like a calling card left by someone who wanted to be recognized only by those who could decode it. And then there was Professor Nolan. I could feel his fingerprints everywhere. Every clever trick in the encryption, every seemingly small anomaly, pointed to his genius. But now that genius was twisted into something dangerous. I could not believe it. My mentor, the man who had encouraged me, had become part of this massive network of fraud and deceit. Alex put a hand on my shoulder during one of the late nights. "You need to remember you are not alone in this," I nodded, leaning back in my chair. "But sometimes it feels like I am in over my head." Leela smiled softly. "You are doing the right thing, and we are all here with you." I felt a small warmth amidst the fear. They were right. Even though the conspiracy was bigger than anything I had imagined, I was not facing it alone. Together we could map it, understand it, and maybe find a way to dismantle it. By the time morning light spilled through my window, I had a clearer view of the network than ever before. Each connection I traced, each error I spotted, was a step closer to understanding the people behind it, their motives, and how to stop them. I whispered to myself, almost as a promise, "I will expose this, I will protect Alex, and I will not let anyone else get hurt." The city outside my window was waking up. Oblivious to the hidden threads of corruption I was slowly unraveling. And for the first time since Henry was killed, I felt a spark of control. Not over the entire conspiracy, but over the first steps I was taking to confront it. The feeling in my chest that morning was a mix of dread and determination. Boston had that low gray light, the kind that makes the city feel heavier than it really is. I sat at my desk with coffee in hand and my laptop open, scrolling through data I had decrypted overnight. Every line, every transaction, every timestamp seemed to converge toward one name: Professor Nolan. I muttered under my breath, "How did it come to this?" Alex, sitting cross-legged on my bed, looked at me with those steady eyes. "You found him?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah. Every trace, every encryption signature, every shell company leads back to him." He ran a hand through his hair. "This is insane, Olivia. He was your mentor." I shook my head. Staring at the screen, "You trusted him." "Alex, I looked up to him, I learned everything from him, and now he is behind all of this." Leela, who had been leaning against the doorframe with a notebook in hand, spoke softly. "This is bigger than any of us imagined, but we have to be careful. We cannot confront him directly." I pressed my lips together, thinking, how do you confront someone who is brilliant enough to hide a criminal network behind layers of encryption without leaving a trace? Shadow's voice crackled through the earpiece. "Stay focused." He said, "The evidence is strong, but subtle mistakes can be used against us. Timing is everything." I nodded, already thinking several steps ahead. I started compiling a report, encrypting it, and preparing contingencies in case we were being watched. Each detail mattered. Each misstep could cost us dearly. I could not help but remember all the lectures, the casual office conversations, the advice Nolan had given me. Every memory now carried a double meaning. Did he ever care, or was it all just a mask? Hours passed as I cross-referenced data, tracing minor inconsistencies in his professional records, small transactions disguised as academic grants, emails sent under pseudonyms. It was painstaking work, but necessary. Alex finally broke the silence. "You think he knew we were onto him?" I exhaled slowly. "Maybe not yet, but if we continue decrypting the file, he will notice anomalies, and if he notices anomalies, he will act." We spent the next day strategizing. Marcus helped me write scripts that could flag suspicious communications automatically. Leela contacted old sources subtly, planting questions without revealing too much. Shadow guided me in how to analyze every digital footprint without leaving ours exposed. By nightfall, I had gathered a list of tangible evidence: coded emails, financial transactions, and metadata, all pointing toward Professor Nolan. My stomach churned as I realized I had enough to connect him definitively to the network that had endangered Alex and many others. I whispered to myself, almost as a warning, "Be careful, Olivia. This is not just a game anymore." Alex leaned close and placed a hand on my arm. "You are not alone in this, remember that." I nodded, feeling a mix of fear and resolve. This was no longer just about unraveling a file. This was about confronting a betrayal so personal it cut deep. About protecting Alex. About making sure the people who were hurt by this network would have a chance to see justice. Late into the night, I continued decrypting, connecting, and analyzing. Every clue we uncovered brought us closer to exposing him. Every breakthrough also reminded me of the danger lurking outside my apartment walls. I could feel it, a silent pressure that told me time was running out. Finally, I leaned back in my chair and whispered to the empty room, "I will expose you, Nalan, and I will not let anyone else get hurt." The city outside was quiet, but my mind was racing, planning the next moves, preparing for the inevitable confrontation, and bracing for the storm I knew was coming. Boston at night felt like a different city entirely. The streets were quieter, the shadows longer, and every flicker of light from a passing car made me jump. Alex stayed close, our apartment no longer feeling like a safe haven. I could feel the tension pressing in from all sides. Shadow's voice came through my earpiece, calm and precise. "We have a lead. They are moving funds tonight, and the route is traceable." I nodded even though he could not see me. "Okay, walk me through it." Step by step he guided me through monitoring the network, setting up decoys, and tracking suspicious traffic. Marcus had built scripts that could detect anomalies in real time and send alerts. Leela monitored public communications and media coverage for hints. Together, we formed a fragile but effective surveillance team, hidden behind screens and lines of code. Alex frowned as he watched me work. "What happens if they catch us?" I swallowed hard. "Then we adapt and stay ahead. That is the only way." Hours passed with the hum of computers, rapid clicks, and whispered instructions. And then it happened. An alert pinged. The network was active, large sums of money moving through multiple accounts in a carefully orchestrated sequence. I whispered, "Yes, that's it, Shadow. I have eyes on the transaction." "Good," he said. "Keep tracing. Do not make a move until I tell you." I leaned forward, heart pounding, following the digital footprints. Every step was tense. Every movement in the network could reveal us. And then, a familiar name appeared in the logs, Nalan. My stomach sank. He was closer than we thought. Alex leaned over my shoulder. "What does that mean?" "It means we are about to see his hand in action," I said. Voice tight with dread, we followed the trail, maneuvering carefully. The scripts Marcus had set up flagged multiple accounts and communications that were previously invisible. It was a glimpse into the precision and scale of Nalan's network. Each transaction, each line of code, revealed his control over an unseen web of people and money. Leela typed rapidly from the other side of the room. "I am seeing references to offshore accounts and corporate fronts I never knew existed." Shadow's voice came again. "They are preparing for an operation soon. You must be ready." I nodded, gripping the edge of my desk. We had no choice but to stay vigilant and act strategically. Hours later, a live feed of the network revealed an attempted transfer of funds flagged by our monitoring scripts. It was unusual, and I knew that whoever was behind it was testing us. I whispered to myself, "We are in the eye of the storm now, Alex." His voice tight. "I do not like this, Sarah." I met his gaze and forced a smile. "We have to keep going. We cannot back down." We watched as the network attempted to reroute funds, an act that would have gone unnoticed by anyone else. I carefully intervened using Marcus's scripts to redirect and block suspicious movements. Every action was calculated, every decision critical. Then a notification appeared on my screen, a message coded in the same signature I had come to associate with Nalan. It was a direct challenge, a digital taunt. I clenched my fists. "Shadow, he knows we are here." "Affirmative," he said. "We expected this move." With caution, I took a deep breath, reminding myself that fear was part of the game, but precision and strategy were my tools. Every piece of evidence we had uncovered brought us closer to exposing him, but it also brought the danger closer. Alex touched my arm, voice barely audible. "Stay with me." I nodded, leaning forward as the night deepened around us. We were not just tracing a network anymore. We were in it, playing against a mastermind who had been one step ahead for years. And I knew that each move we made now could be the difference between uncovering the truth and losing everything. I whispered to myself, determined, "I will see this through. I will protect Alex, and I will confront Nalan no matter what." The city outside was quiet, the skyline dotted with lights, oblivious to the battle unfolding in front of computer screens, but I could feel the tension like a living presence. The first confrontation had begun, and there was no turning back. The tension in the apartment was suffocating. Every notification ping from my laptop made my heart jump. Alex sat across from me, his hands clasped tightly, eyes darting between the screens and me. Leela leaned against the desk, notebook open, scribbling furiously. Marcus had multiple terminals open, scripts running in real time, and Shadow's voice came through the earpiece, calm but insistent. "Sarah," he said, "they are aware of your interference. They are trying to lock you out of the network." I nodded, fingers flying over the keyboard, bypassing security protocols, rerouting access, keeping the digital battle alive. Each action had to be precise. One misstep could expose us or worse, put Alex in direct danger again. A sudden alert popped up. Funds were being moved faster than our scripts could track. I felt a pang of panic but forced myself to focus. Leela looked at the screen. What is happening? I swallowed hard. They are accelerating transactions. Someone wants to see if we are still paying attention. Alex's voice trembled. I do not like this, Sarah. I gave him a reassuring look. Though my own stomach was tight with fear, we have to stay focused, Alex. We can handle this. Shadow guided me step by step. We need to trace the origin. The pattern is unusual, sophisticated, and time-sensitive. Hours passed in a tense blur. I followed digital footprints, traced account routes, decrypted communications, and flagged anomalies. Each small victory was like a temporary lifeline, a glimpse of control in a chaotic sea. Then my heart skipped. A message appeared on the screen, encoded in Nolan's signature style. It was direct, personal, and chilling. Olivia Smith, the file is not yours. You are meddling in forces beyond your understanding. I clenched my fists, staring at the message. The betrayal hit again. The man I had trusted, admired, and learned from was taunting me now, acknowledging our interference and warning me off. Alex reached over, his voice steady despite his fear. We will not let him win. I nodded, determination sharpening. My mentor may be behind this, but I will not let him control us or harm anyone else. Leela, reviewing transaction anomalies, spoke softly. We can anticipate the next moves. We have patterns, signatures, timing sequences. I took a deep breath and let the adrenaline sharpen my mind. Each clue, each minor error from them was a doorway we could exploit. We had to stay ahead, anticipate the counterattacks, and protect Alex. Hours turned into late night, and fatigue settled over us, but none of us could sleep. Every sound outside the apartment, every flicker of the computer screen, every notification could be another threat. The network we were unraveling was powerful, expansive, and dangerous, but we had the advantage of determination, skill, and the element of surprise. Shadow's voice broke the silence. You are ready for the next stage. They will escalate soon, but you can stay ahead, I whispered to myself. Leaning forward, eyes locked on the screens. I will stay ahead. I will protect Alex. I will expose Nolan outside. The Boston skyline glittered like it always did, indifferent to the danger, betrayal, and fear inside the apartment. Inside, the four of us, Alex, Leela, Marcus, and I, were a fragile but resolute team, poised on the edge of a storm we could see but could not fully control. I knew one thing clearly. The network would not give up, and neither could we. This escalation was just the beginning, and I had no intention of backing down. The next morning, I woke with a tight knot in my chest. The adrenaline from the night before had left me exhausted but alert. Boston was gray and still, as if the city itself was holding its breath. I sat at my desk with coffee cooling beside me and my laptop open, ready to dive back into the file. Alex was awake too, pacing slightly, worry etched into his face. You have been at this nonstop, he said, voice tight. I am worried about you. I gave him a tired smile. I know, but we are close, Alex. I can feel it. Leela leaned against the doorframe, notebook in hand, watching us quietly. We have patterns now, she said softly. The network moves in predictable ways if we analyze them carefully. Marcus, headphones on, tapped rapidly at his keyboard. You guys, I think I found something more. They have secondary layers hidden within the main transactions, a kind of failsafe, in case the main channels are traced. I leaned over, scanning his screen. His discovery made my stomach tight. This was beyond anything we had imagined. It was not just a network of money. It was a fortress of encrypted layers, redundancies, and digital misdirections designed to make any investigation collapse before it could reach the masterminds. Shadow's voice came through my earpiece, calm but firm. We need to prioritize, Olivia. The deeper layers contain direct links to Nolan and key operatives. You need to map them before they notice our interference. I nodded, typing rapidly, tracing transaction patterns, decoding metadata, and flagging communications. Every clue, every minor anomaly became a breadcrumb leading deeper into the heart of the network. Hours passed like minutes, every ping of the system making my pulse quicken. And then I found it, a subnetwork directly tied to Professor Nolan. Hidden accounts, coded instructions, and communications only he could orchestrate. My stomach sank at the realization. Alex asked quietly, is that it, Sarah? I nodded slowly. Yeah, this is him. Every clever signature, every hidden path, every subtle redirection is his work. Leela looked over my shoulder. Brow furrowed. This is insane. I can't believe one person could control all of this. I shook my head. Running a hand through my hair, he is brilliant and dangerous. Marcus, chimed in. He left fingerprints, though digital fingerprints are subtle, but consistent if we follow them. We can anticipate his next moves. I exhaled slowly, my mind racing. Anticipating Nolan's moves meant understanding not just the network, but him as a person. Every decision, every pattern in the file reflected his thinking, his genius twisted into something dangerous. Shadow guided me through the analysis, helping me spot inconsistencies, redundancies, and hidden codes that would otherwise be invisible. Step by step, the layers unraveled, and a clearer picture emerged. Nolan was not acting alone entirely, but his influence permeated every critical point. Alex, voice tight with concern, we are walking into his world, Sarah, I nodded. Determination firming, I know, but we have to keep going. He put Alex and Henry at risk, and we cannot let that happen again. By the evening, we had mapped out a significant portion of the network, enough to understand the operational flow and anticipate potential moves. Each breakthrough was exhilarating, terrifying, and exhausting all at once. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the skyline outside my window, whispering to myself, I will expose you, Nolan, I will protect Alex, and I will unravel every secret. The night closed in around us, quiet and watchful. Boston seemed still, but I knew the storm was coming. We were close to the heart of the network, and with every layer we revealed, the danger grew. But so did my resolve. This was no longer just a file, no longer just a mystery. This was about justice, about protecting people, and about confronting the man I had once trusted more than anyone. And I was ready. The tension in my apartment that week was almost unbearable. Every time my phone buzzed or my laptop pinged with a notification, my heart skipped. Alex stayed close, quiet but alert, always watching, always ready. Leela and Marcus had taken shifts with me, poring over the data, checking every lead, every encrypted trail, every subtle anomaly in Nolan's network. And Shadow's voice guided us, calm and steady, through the chaos. We had traced more links in the network, and with each discovery, the danger became more immediate. Small signs emerged that someone was watching us. A car parked too long across the street, a shadowy figure glimpsed in the hallway, strange signals in the network traffic. It was like the web we were uncovering was alive, responding to our interference. Alex touched my arm as I stared at my laptop, eyes strained from hours of work. They are escalating, I can feel it, I nodded. Not looking up, we have to stay ahead, that is the only way. Late that night, a new message appeared, encoded and unmistakably Nolan's signature. It was brief and threatening. You are in over your head, Sarah. Stop now or there will be consequences. I clenched my fists, anger and fear mingling. I looked at Alex, who met my gaze with unwavering trust. We will not back down. I said firmly. Marcus leaned back in his chair. I've been running simulations. If they try to make a move tonight, we have a chance to counter it. Leela added softly. The patterns show. They are testing our response times. They want to see how fast we react. Shadow's voice cut in. I suggest you be ready for a direct threat, Olivia. They know we are closing in and will attempt something risky. I exhaled slowly, focusing. Every clue we had uncovered now had to be leveraged. Every trace we had mapped could help us anticipate the next move. This was no longer just about tracing funds. It was about survival, about protecting Alex, and about staying one step ahead of a man who had once been my mentor. Hours later, the threat materialized. A notification on my system showed an unauthorized access attempt from a location close to our building. My pulse spiked. Someone was physically close, monitoring us in real time. Alex's voice trembled. Stay calm, Sarah, I nodded, fingers flying across the keyboard, rerouting signals, masking our digital footprint, creating false trails. Marcus assisted, running scripts to counteract intrusions. Leela kept track of possible exits, routes, and safe spaces in case we had to move quickly. After an hour of tense activity, the access attempt stopped, but the message was clear. Nolan's network was aware, and the threat was immediate. I leaned back, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down, but determination overriding fear. We could not let this stop us. We had come too far, and too much was at stake. Shadow's voice guided me. One more stage of testing. Is likely they will attempt direct intimidation. Next, stay alert, I whispered to myself. Almost a vow. I will protect Alex, I will expose Nolan, and I will not let fear control me. The city outside was quiet, the streets empty in the early hours. But inside, in that small apartment, the storm was building. Every alert, every anomaly, every shadow could signal the next escalation. And we had to be ready. I glanced at Alex, who was exhausted but unwavering. I promise you we will get through this, he nodded, eyes tired but resolute. And I trust you. The night stretched on, filled with tension, strategy, and quiet determination. The network had escalated, but so had we. We were no longer passive observers. We were players in a game of wits, skill, and courage. And I knew that the next move could change everything. The days that followed felt like walking on a tightrope. Every sound, every flicker of light, every ping from my laptop kept me on edge. Boston was draped in gray, the city quiet and unassuming, oblivious to the danger circling us. Alex was still staying with me. His bruises had faded, but the tension in his eyes remained. Every time I looked at him, I felt the weight of what I was putting him through. I wanted him safe, I wanted to keep him out of this, but I also knew that the more we uncovered, the more danger we invited. Leela paced the small apartment. Flipping through her notes, "It is worse than we thought. Olivia Nolan is using people close to us as leverage." I froze. "What do you mean?" She handed me her notebook, showing a series of connections between minor operatives and contacts. We had trusted previously safe allies, were being manipulated, observed, or threatened to ensure compliance. Alex leaned against the wall. "Jaw tight, this is personal now. He is targeting people he knows you care about." I swallowed hard. Tension knotting my stomach, I know Shadow's voice came through the earpiece, calm and deliberate. "Olivia, we anticipated this escalation. It is time to consider a direct intervention." I nodded. Though my heart pounded, "I am ready. What do we do step by step?" He outlined a plan. "We create digital decoys, trace communication pathways, and identify the operatives most likely to be Nolan's direct extensions. We isolate the network's nodes and apply pressure carefully without alerting him." Marcus's hands flew across his keyboard. "I can set up counter scripts and decoys. They will think the network is still operational while we track it." Leela added, "We also have to be careful with information. We cannot leave traces that can be linked back to us." Hours of meticulous work followed. Every line of code, every trace of metadata, every digital footprint was scrutinized. The network moved constantly, but we moved faster, anticipating each step, cutting off access points, and gathering evidence simultaneously. Then came a direct message on my encrypted line. "Olivia Smith, you cannot stop this. You will lose everything if you continue." My hands trembled slightly, but I typed back firmly, "You underestimate me, Nolan, and you underestimate the people who are standing with me." Alex touched my shoulder gently. "You are stronger than this network, Sarah." I nodded. "Drawing strength from their trust, we are going to bring him down, and no one else will get hurt." By the evening, we had identified several key operatives, people directly tied to Nolan, and locations linked to critical transactions. It was a breakthrough, but also a terrifying confirmation of the scale of the operation. Every small victory was fraught with danger. I whispered to myself, staring at the screens, "The city skyline outside the window. Boston may seem quiet, but this is the calm before the storm. I will protect Alex, I will expose Nolan, and I will not stop until justice is done." The night closed in, filled with quiet determination, strategic planning, and an unspoken understanding among us. The stakes were higher than ever, Nolan's manipulations personal, but our resolve had strengthened. We were ready for the next step, and we knew there would be no turning back. The morning felt heavy, the kind of Boston gray that presses down on your shoulders. We had been preparing for this day for almost a week. Every lead, every trace, every piece of digital evidence had been mapped. Today we were going to act. Marcus sat at the desk, screens flashing with lines of code, running in real time. "This is it. I can manipulate the network while you execute the trace." Leela flipped through her notes. "Everyone knows their roles. Remember precision and timing are everything." Alex stood quietly, tension in his jaw. "I still worry about you." I gave him a small smile. "We are in this together, and we will get through it." Shadow's voice came through my earpiece, calm and steady. "Sarah, the network's operational nodes are vulnerable now. You have a small window to act." I nodded, taking a deep breath. My fingers flew over the keyboard, launching decoys, rerouting traffic, and isolating critical points in Nolan's network. Each step had to be precise. One mistake and it could all collapse. Hours passed in a blur of digital warfare. Alerts pinged constantly, scripts ran, and patterns shifted, but we moved faster, anticipating every move. Then a breakthrough. A series of accounts previously hidden under multiple layers of encryption were exposed. Metadata, timestamps, and coded messages all pointed directly to operatives acting under Nolan's orders. Leela leaned over my shoulder, reading the logs. "We have them, Olivia." Every last one. Alex let out a breath finally, but I knew the danger was not over. "Shadow warned you will face direct interference soon. Be ready." And then it happened. An alert came in showing a physical attempt to access one of the operatives' locations. Nolan had realized we were getting close. The operatives were moving, and some were likely armed. I clenched my fists, my heart racing. Alex, Leela, and Marcus waited for my instructions. We had to act fast, carefully, and strategically. I set up countermeasures, rerouted data flows, and flagged operatives for tracking. The scripts Marcus had written worked perfectly, misleading them into false channels while giving us real-time insight into their movements. Hours of tense maneuvering later, the digital network began to unravel. Operatives disconnected, accounts froze, communications scrambled. It was not complete collapse, but the cracks were widening. Shadow's voice came through again. "This is it, Olivia. You are destabilizing the core of the network." I exhaled slowly, relief mixed with tension. We had done it. The network was breaking. Nolan's control was weakening. Alex touched my arm. "You did it, Sarah," I nodded. Eyes still glued to the screens. "We are close, but the mastermind is still out there." By the end of the night, we had documented every step, every piece of evidence, and traced enough to identify key locations and remaining operatives. The network was crumbling, but Nolan remained the central figure, the final obstacle. I whispered to myself, almost as a vow. "Boston may look calm, but the storm is not over. I will expose Nolan, I will protect everyone, and I will finish this." The city outside seemed peaceful, unaware of the battle being waged inside a small apartment, lines of code and quiet voices fighting a hidden war. But for the first time in weeks, I allowed myself a flicker of hope. We were not out of danger yet, but the network was breaking, and the path to justice, though still perilous, was becoming clear. The night felt impossibly still. After days of relentless work, tracing every thread of Nolan's network, destabilizing his operatives, and gathering evidence, we were ready for the final confrontation. Boston's skyline stretched outside my window, calm and indifferent, a stark contrast to the storm that had consumed my life for weeks. Shadow's voice came through the earpiece with steady authority. "Sarah, you have everything. The FBI is ready to move in. You need to maintain access and ensure the evidence is uncorrupted until the operation is complete." I nodded, hands resting on the keyboard, heart pounding. Alex stood behind me, silent but resolute. Leela and Marcus were in position, supporting me in every way possible. The culmination of our weeks of effort rested on these final moments. The first sign of action came in the form of encrypted communications intercepted from Nolan's inner circle. The tension was immediate. The messages indicated awareness, panic, and confusion among his operatives. Our efforts had worked. The network was crumbling, and the man I had once trusted so completely was now exposed. Hours later, the FBI, moving in under Shadow's coordination, executed the operation. Operatives were apprehended, accounts frozen, and critical evidence secured. The culmination of our work unfolded in real time on my screens, each alert confirming progress, each update a step toward justice. And then the moment I had feared and anticipated, Professor Nolan. Shadow guided us through the confirmation process, cross-referencing the evidence, the encrypted signatures, and the digital fingerprints. There was no doubt. He was the architect of it all. The betrayal, the manipulation, the danger, it had all led back to him. A part of me ached with disbelief, grief, and anger. But the rational part of me, the part that had fought tirelessly to get here, reminded me that he was just a person, flawed, dangerous, and now accountable. The FBI apprehended him quietly, swiftly. I watched the news feed as the story unfolded, the scope of the conspiracy exposed. My heart was heavy, but relief mingled with a strange sense of closure. The danger that had loomed over Alex, over Leela, over myself, and over countless others was ending. I turned to Alex, who had been quietly supporting me through every step I did it. I whispered softly. He smiled, tired but genuine. "You kept your promise." Leela joined us. Notebook in hand, a small grin on her face. "We did it together." Sarah Marcus leaned back, exhaustion clear in his posture. "We actually did it, but I knew the fight was not over entirely. There were lessons learned, scars carried, and a responsibility that weighed heavily. With the network dismantled, I had a choice. I could accept accolades, offers, and rewards, but the path I wanted was different. I focused on what mattered most. Using the skills and knowledge I had honed, I founded a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping victims of online fraud, providing education on cybersecurity, and strengthening digital safety in communities. Alex, Leela, and Marcus stood by me, each contributing in their own way. The first official event for the nonprofit felt surreal. Boston's skyline glittered behind us as we welcomed our first participants. I stepped forward, taking a deep breath, speaking to a room full of people who had experienced loss, fear, and betrayal. We can protect ourselves, we can learn, we can fight back against those who seek to harm us online, I said. Voice steady, we can take knowledge and use it to build safety, trust, and resilience. The applause was quiet but heartfelt. I felt a warmth that had been absent for weeks, a sense of purpose stronger than fear. The journey had been dangerous, painful, and filled with betrayal, but it had led to something meaningful. Later that night, sitting on the balcony with Alex, looking over the city lights, I reflected on everything. From the moment I first decrypted that file, to the danger we faced, to the betrayal of someone I trusted completely, the path had been treacherous. But the choices I had made, the courage to act, and the support of those I trusted had brought me here. I whispered softly, almost to myself, Boston is quiet now, but we have made a difference and we will keep making a difference. Alex squeezed my hand. You were amazing. Sarah, I smiled, letting the relief and hope wash over me. We all were, and for the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt peace. Not the absence of danger, but the presence of purpose, resilience, and hope. The cipher siren had found her voice, not to destroy, but to protect, guide, and inspire. We had faced darkness and emerged determined. And I knew that no matter what came next, we would continue to fight for truth, justice, and safety in a world where secrets could hurt or heal depending on who wielded them. The city lights twinkled below, indifferent yet beautiful. And I realized with a quiet certainty that we had done more than survive. We had changed the game.